look who's coming in, dragging his tail between his legs.
Dave?
It's Cody.
No,
Yeah.
Cody is here.
That's the funny part, though, is you were late,
Dave,
but Dave was later.
The Dave window is empty. It's not here. So welcome to the Team Objection Podcast. It's episode 531 for June 7th, 2022. Cody just pulled in the door. Live show. I mean, what can you do? Hell, I even started a hair late just to try and buy time. Dave might be 10 minutes out still. So guess what we're going to do first? We're going to review Chip and Dale.
Yay!
What about Doctor? Or are we going to save?
I don't
That's
know
what
we have time for
do.
Doctor Strange.
That's a good
That
point.
feels like a longer one.
That's a good
I don't
point.
know that I have more than about 10 minutes of things to say about Chip and Dale.
Yeah, that's
so
a good point.
We're just going to do that. We're going to be having an awkward hole on the screen as a reminder of what could have been.
We were
Can
going
you
to
put
do.
Not Chip and Dale in there?
Not easily.
Not now.
I
Can
could
you
do it
it?
now, but I don't want to
I don't
disrupt
have
the other tournament stuff going
I
on.
don't have a computer.
Yeah, because I was gonna say we could have done Sonic 2 and Chip and Dale in a segment, but now that we only have one, let's just jump into Chip and Dale. It's a preamble to the TV sitcom tournament, which we'll explain. It's gonna be very cool.
Yeah.
It's a weird start.
So
stick with us.
Stick around. We have a big time thing starting this week that's actually going to run 3 weeks now instead of 2 because the bracket is enormous. We'll talk about that once Dave gets on. I'm going to have to add him when that happens, and that's going to be distracting. But just to keep things going.
Dave's so late. We were going to talk about, maybe we talk about the ones that are going to get on the list, vamp for a little bit, but there's not even enough time for that. He's so late.
Because we could just go that route if you don't want to review Chip and Dale now. I could talk about the bracket formation and set everything up, and then when Dave gets on, he'll have to sit and figure it out. But
I know. You know what? Let's.
Sean, do you want me to cuddle with you in your bedroom? Since
Oh yeah.
I should take Maisie's space in the house.
And if you can't see that all the way there, you can always pull it up on your phone too. Just go to the video and you'll be in the chat there.
The moral of the story is fucking Dave. Truly. What is it with this guy? We should go on a 10-minute anti-Dave review.
I can do that.
But just kidding. We should really talk about Chip and Dale. So we watched Chip and Dale. And for anybody that doesn't know, and you're thinking, wow, a reboot to the Rescue Rangers from 20 years ago. This was that, but also not that at all.
Mm-hmm.
This was more like, Cody, what do you call this? Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
It was more of a sequel to Who Framed Roger Rabbit than it was a sequel to Chip and Dale, honestly.
It even had his cameo in it.
Yes, it did.
Sure.
Yeah.
It did.
I read, so speaking of the cameos, there's a lot of stupid, silly cameos. The best one was Ugly Sonic, right? Ugly Sonic shows up.
Well, is this a spoilers-free review?
Well, clearly. I mean, Ugly Sonic was all over the internet before I even saw the movie.
Well, I'm just saying, he becomes the hero in the end of the movie.
Yeah, what's I'm saying? It was supposed to be Jar Jar Binks. Originally.
Are you serious?
And they replaced it with Ugly Sonic. And I don't know if that was
That's tough.
I don't think enough time has passed still for Jar Jar to actually be redeemed like that.
Well, but he was sort of redeemed in the Clone Wars, right?
No,
or they
wasn't.
tried.
No, he wasn't. No,
Okay.
not at all. His episodes suck. I skipped them.
They tried to, and he's better than he is in the movies, but no, he is by
he
no
still
means
sucks.
redeemed.
No, he still sucks.
But yeah, so you're going into it, and I was an okay fan of the original show.
Mm-hmm.
It was fine for what it was.
Sure.
This is very different. This just pokes fun at everything with this culture, including the original Rescue Rangers and kind of everything in between. It was a lot of humor. I feel like kids, which is what it was sort of the demographic, but it's going to go over their heads so much of it.
This is an adult movie dressed up like a kid movie. Because there's, the Pixar style, which is a kid movie with humor that only the adults are going to get in little bursts just to be like, ha ha ha, look, see, it's for you too. This was the opposite of that, where you take your kid to this and your kid would go, what? Because they don't understand half the jokes. And the cartoons that are there are doing drugs and there's violence and depression.
I did just rewatch it again this weekend with a soon-to-be 7-year-old.
Okay.
So they could watch it. I showed her Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, the cartoon first, 2 episodes, and then watched the movie. She did think the movie was funny.
She did?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
but plenty, but mostly it's because she really liked the cartoon I showed her 2 or 3 episodes of, and she liked it a lot right away. So I think that's why she liked the movie.
So she maybe didn't understand that the cheese was an allegory for crack.
No, I don't believe the almost 7-year-old understood that there was a crack dealer.
But even I guess erasing characters so that they look different is sort of funny inherently.
She loved what Peter Pan turns into.
Okay.
The monster of all of the thing. And she actually understood a decent amount of the references. She recognized it was Woody's boot. She understood some of all of that.
I didn't even understand. I don't. You're saying Woody's boot. I can't recall Woody's boot.
When
so.
he gets transformed at the end, he's like 6 different cartoon characters,
And
he
Woody's
has
leg
Woody,
is
and he
one
has
of
Woody's
them.
leg as one of
Oh,
And he doesn't really
Awesome.
say any Woody lines, I don't think.
He can't.
I didn't. Yeah, I was.
He'll get
I kind of
he'll get
figured it was
sued.
probably too far, but I was like, man, because he kind of borrows from a few of the other personas or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call this amalgamation. No, like there's a snake in my boots, but I think I know why.
yeah. Is it too far though? Because as part of the review, they touched on a lot of things that I'm like, how are they allowed to do this?
So from what I understand is if you have like Randy Marsh is sitting there in the Russian bathhouse, you can have him on there, but as long as he doesn't say a word, you're allowed to use the likeness because you're not disparaging it, I guess, in some way.
Does it fall under like the satire rules?
I think so,
Like-
yeah.
Okay, interesting. But then what about like Peter Pan? I mean, I know it's like Disney,
But that's why it was okay because
okay,
It's not
yeah.
Peter Pan. It's Sweet Pete.
but because it's Peter Pan and that's a Disney still has because it's Disney's Peter Pan, like that's what he's imagined as. Like I guess Peter Pan's could be, I don't know. You could have a weird rights thing where Peter Pan is in
Also,
like Winnie the Pooh is in what's
right.
it called?
That's the
Public
perfect
domain.
example I was
Public
about to bring
domain,
up.
yeah,
Winnie the
yeah.
Pooh and Mickey Mouse has come up for that same problem, and
Yeah.
Disney keeps pushing it back. But they have the same problem with a lot of their older properties because copyright law only extends for so long.
Yeah,
But because
right.
it's their version of Peter Pan, they're allowed to do whatever they wanted, and so the Lonely Island guys took advantage of that.
Is that their movie?
Yes. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah. I think it's Akiva that directed it. So the guy who's the director at the start that is Chip and Dale's director that you see, he's in Lonely Island. He directed the movie.
Okay.
And Lonely Island basically produced it because Sandberg's the voice of one of them.
So
He's
you have
voicing
Sandberg,
Dale.
you have the guy who's Hitler in their one Time movie that they did, and then you have the other guy. Never mind, we're going down a tangent. Okay, Lonely Island directed it. That's good for me.
We
to
only have
know.
a few minutes. We have to go fast.
Yeah.
Just like Ugly Sonic.
So I wanted to say
That's Sonic's thing. He
yeah.
says.
in so often in these like comedies that are under the guise of like an action movie or whatever, the plot like just sort of falls apart or it's secondary. And I'm not saying this was like riveting or great writing, but like I thought they did a pretty good job with making it something that makes it effective satire. So following sort of the rules of the genre,
Yeah.
having Mr. Gumby or the knockoff, J.K. Simmons having like what seemingly was a great time of voicing that character.
Yeah, I mean, he's living his best life, isn't he? I mean, he just gets to be all these fun, different characters in different universes, some animated, some not.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to go win an Oscar, and then I'm going to come be an invincible superhero.
A fake Gumby cop.
And then in Gumby, and a Gumby cop. Yeah, it's great. I love that guy.
Yeah, I mean, it was an excuse, using Chip and Dale as the excuse for like, we have a bunch of references and jokes we want to throw together to where it's like 20 SNL skits basically like smushed
Yeah.
together, but have the property and the rights of Disney to be able to do it. And they just like pieced together a storyline as loosely as they possibly could.
I loved how much they hated Alvin and the Chipmunks, too. That might have been
Yeah.
like secretly the funniest part for
Yeah.
me is the how much they loathe. Because I also loathe them.
What?
How did you feel about Mulaney and Sandberg as voices?
I think, I mean, it was pretty clear if you watch the original thing, like they did them correctly. Like Dale should be Sandberg and Mulaney should be Chip.
Yeah.
It made complete sense.
Easily.
I think because like if you watch the cartoon, obviously like they have chipmunk high pitched voices. So the idea that it was like those were their actor voices in the show, and that's why they were like sounded like chipmunks, but they actually speak like humans.
Yeah.
I think you did a pretty good job. Makes
Well,
a lot of sense.
So do we got to give a score? Are we
I'd
that
have-
pressed?
I'd have
Because
to
I
know.
give a score.
I mean, Dave will be on any minute, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I liked it. I like thoroughly enjoyed my time. I thought we were gonna get into it and it was gonna be worth a couple of laughs, but overall, like not that good. And I was laughing a lot, and I was actually like, this plot was interesting. It held my attention the whole way through to be the canvas for all of those jokes. So, I mean, I'm gonna give it like a solid, like 7.5 out of 10. Scores are always relative. I'm 7.5 out of 10 for a movie like this.
It's pretty good.
Is
It
good.
also
You know
was
what
free.
I mean?
You didn't have to go to the theater because it was on Disney Plus.
Yeah, and if
that
you ever
probably
give
helps.
a 10 to a comedy, it's because it was a really good comedy, not because it's the next Godfather, So
Right.
No, I mean I would say it's like a 7 too.
Yeah.
So I
It's
think the one thing I also enjoyed was just the sight gags of there being smaller versions of places to live for all of the tinier characters.
Yeah.
I think none didn't call any attention to it. It was just there are
It's
tinier.
like giant human's face in the window.
Yeah, there's just a fucking face in the window all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I go like 7. Yeah, I didn't come in with many expectations like Sean, and I walked away being like, that was amusing. That was worth my time. And that's plenty, to be honest, because, look, I get that there's some pushback. Overall, it's done pretty well. Like, I think it's, 80-something on Rotten Tomatoes, which is about as high as it could be, let's be very honest. And, I've seen a handful of complaints like, well, they had to bring in these, big-time movie actors instead of the original voice actors. But like you said, that was the whole point, was like, these are not their voices except when they're on the show. They got the original Gadget.
Yeah.
And, I saw some folks who were like, I wish there had been some other characters from the show. I'm like, they had one major villain, which is Fat Cat. Monterey Jack is a borderline offensive stereotype. At best, he's a one-note character, so he's fine getting pushed to the side. So, other than Gadget, I don't really know that anybody else cares about the other Chip and Dale characters. I'm sorry.
Is there anyone that didn't like this movie? Like,
I would have. So at the very end for Peter Pan, when he turns into, that's not Fat Cat's face. If they had just thrown Fat Cat's face onto that, that would have been really funny.
That would have been a nice way to at least have a throwback to him.
But I would guess the only people who had a beef with the movie are like former fans who actually really wanted a Rescue Rangers movie.
Yeah. But isn't that the joke? That's the joke that Dale is running in the Comic-Con thing. That's like, who the fuck is asking for a Chip and Dale reboot of the cartoon?
And if you don't like the two leads in particular, which there are certainly people who don't, I can see why this isn't for you. Because, it's a little bit sardonic, sure. I mean, you can argue that there's this undercurrent of negativity that kind of flows through the whole movie. To me, I think that's funnier than it is, insulting. But I could see some folks who didn't have the right picture of this movie coming in and being like, oh, that's, dark, and I don't like that. I get it. I think those people are taking themselves too seriously.
Well, I mean, in some ways, it went as dark as I wanted it to. Are they actually going to have people murdering cartoon characters? No, but this is, the next best thing.
Well, they tried that with that Muppets movie.
Oh,
there was that weird knockoff Muppets movie, and they were murdering Muppets and spilling their Muppet guts all over the place, and people were like, "What the fuck is this?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it made $5 million and got really bad reviews.
So exactly. So I don't think terrible. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And from having watched the trailers, I thought I was going to be more bothered by the fact that Chip and Dale were both in two different styles the entire goddamn movie, and it turns out that once you get used to it, it was fine.
That joke paid off too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it works in the end.
I was expecting them to change it at some point, and they never did. No. Although it was pseudo 2D, right? It was actually they were both really 3D, but one was cell shaded and one was
effectively.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can tell a lot of Chip's expressions in particular, you can just see John Mulaney in them. So you're like, I see. So it's this classic character, but with his spin on it.
Uh-huh.
It worked pretty well. And again, we tried to watch a few different movies when we were on vacation that week, and this was one that we just kind of decided to watch one night. It was, we had access to the streaming platform. We thought, why not? I didn't regret it in the slightest.
It was smart writers though, because Maisie said Ugly Sonic was the best. I agree, it was the best. But they know not only to include Ugly Sonic, but the joke where they focus in on his teeth. They know he's bad, and they know exactly why he's bad, and it's great. So, as an allegory for the entire movie, I thought Ugly Sonic was great. It was just smart comedy, really, through the whole thing.
Well, we kill as much time as possible, and I haven't heard from Dave yet.
But now we're gonna get
I know he's in his house.
Sonic 2.
Sonic 2. Here, once upon a time.
We'll get to Sonic 2
We're going to start
eventually.
explaining the tournament and you can walk into whatever.
What excellent casting of Knuckles' voice. Yes, Knuckles.
Yeah.
His name
people weren't 100% sure when that was first announced. It turns out Idris Elba's good at whatever he does.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Now even Hobbs and Shaw, he was a good villain.
Now
in a weird movie.
Now he needs to be 007 and Knuckles at the same time.
That would be fine. That would be fine. So, Cody, we're going to jump into the tournament. We're going to explain it. We're also going to say what didn't make the list. We want to spend a little bit of time because...
Oh, yeah, I haven't even reviewed what made it and didn't make it.
There's so many sitcoms.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And especially if you start flirting with what makes on the fringe of a sitcom.
I sat there for 30 minutes yesterday just being like, what else can I add to this list unnecessarily?
Just thinking back. I did it. And you realize how formulative sitcoms were to all of us. Because just think back, what did I watch on Friday night with my family every week for 15 years?
Especially before reality TV.
Yeah, which is funny because what I noticed when we were doing that is it was hard to place a lot of the more modern shows into the classic sitcom thing because I don't watch shit on network TV anymore.
Yeah.
If Seinfeld came out now, I don't maybe if it's good, people are going to watch it. But for Blackish is the show that's really popular on network TV. I don't watch that show. I'm not saying it's a bad show.
Yeah,
but
I don't.
Network TV it's well regarded, but I haven't. I've seen an episode.
That's the equivalent of going and watching Friends now. Friends was a network TV show. So much of everything has been able to be push the boundaries a little bit in terms of like rating and all that. Like me wanting Veep on there specifically. Veep's not necessarily a sitcom, but it's still kind of like in the same vein.
Well, and I think what gets interesting, and I might as well jump into this because fucking Dave. There he is. Maybe
him sitting alone like a sad loser person.
It becomes almost like a pseudo war of the networks for
Yeah.
me. And thinking back, and I gotta say, CBS, man, I don't know if it's a conscious grudge, but I definitely hold a grudge against CBS. Almost nothing. This is gonna be a spoiler for the rest of the tournament. Almost nothing that's showing up on CBS am I gonna look very fondly on. Whereas like NBC, ABC is pretty good. They're gonna have a lot of.
So you're not
a
a big How I Met Your Mother fan.
No, I'm not. Not a big Two Broke
everybody.
Girls.
No, yes is the worst.
The
Two and a half men.
Thank you. I was like, it's another two something.
Yeah, 2.5 men.
And then I mean that's aside from all the like CSI and all the million spinoffs. I did like Survivor though.
You know what's really similar to Survivor?
The Challenge, which we'll get to eventually. I like that, but that's why I like shit like that. So I like Survivor. This may be like the only CBS show I ever liked. Okay, have I vamped enough now for Dave? If you got your nails done, Dave, are you ready to go? You ready to start?
Hey, podcast listeners, as Dave's about to open his talk here and respond to Sean's slander, just let me know if you can hear him. I think you can. Let me know. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, so hopefully everyone can hear me because I already mentioned that I agree with you, Sean. CBS is the worst.
Yeah.
And there's like one show on there that I've watched that I'm like, okay, I could actually stomach this. Everything else is hot garbage.
If you're 20 minutes late, do you think that would have given you enough time to like change your shirt once in a while? It's the same shirt probably for 6 weeks now.
I think it hangs up next to the computer. It's
I
like his
really-
jersey for game
I
time.
thought about keeping my suit on from work, and I'm like, nobody wants to see me in a suit.
I would have
I would've
preferred
liked
the
that.
suit. I
That
would
would've
have
been cool.
preferred
It
the
would've been
suit.
It'd been
uncomfortable,
very-
probably,
It would have been
but-
very classy.
Yeah,
So,
would have been like, hey,
yeah.
Dave's here and he's late, but he's got some upper crust opinions.
Yeah,
My
now,
God.
now you're late and a slob. So it's like, fuck.
Fine, you want me
Anyways,
to go?
you
wanna
can't
go
win.
back?
You just
No.
can't win.
Dave, welcome to the tournament.
All right. Let
We're
me talk
here.
about some of the methodology real quick. We
All
don't have a
right.
ton of time, then we're going to get into it because the show will be an hour and a half if we don't. Also, Maisie's right. When Dave was covering the chunk of the screen, he looked extra mad because he was bigger. All right. So
It was Sean's fault.
we went 64 sitcoms. We usually do 32 in these, and those run long. We went 64 sitcoms. Almost all of them fit this definition. It's loosely, scripted primetime television, generally a comedy and not a drama first. There's obviously a few of these that are going to blur the line. There's no hard and fast rule for any of them. Among some of the things that didn't even make the cut are things like Last Man on Earth, All in the Family, What We Do in the Shadows, Eastbound and Down. Like, we're talking a spread of both some classics and some modern shows that are definitely worthy of inclusion. But when you see all these things that are on the list, and you can see a portion of them on the screen right now, you're quickly going to understand why this had to be pared down the way it was.
And you'll see we didn't. Some people might make the distinction between single cam and multicam. Single cam being like the sort of like traditional movie style, multicam being like, Friends and all those comedies. We just said no. They're all situational comedies, so they're all going to be in this tournament.
So, how did the seeding work? Excellent question. I just went by number of episodes. It's really hard to find any other metric that's going to make a difference. For example, trying to do like viewership is a fool's errand. Modern TV shows would be paled in comparison by some of the classics. Like the MASH finale was one of the most viewed TV events in history.
More so than
And
Super Bowls.
There were also like 8 channels at the time.
Yeah.
And now, of course, beyond just the scope of channels, there's all the streaming platforms,
What would
etc.
Friends pull in every week? Like crazy.
20-something million,
Yeah.
probably, at least in its peak. 15 probably in its subprime. So even number of episodes isn't necessarily the fairest metric. It's a lot harder for TV shows today to survive than it was in the past. But at the very least, I figured it's a sign of longevity. And longevity has to mean something. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to be quality, but the fact that it didn't get canceled has to mean something. So that's how this has worked. From 1 to 64, those are all just based on number of episodes. If there was a tie and there were a handful of them, it was broken by number of seasons, with the number of seasons being higher going to the higher seed.
Last thing, we're going to try, or maybe it's not the last thing, it's my last thing. We're going to try to not just say like rate things off of what we think is the funniest purely. We're going to take other things. Well, some of us might. Most of us are going to take things into account like cultural relevance, longevity, like Chris has already said. If it is funny, but like, is the plot good? Is it meaningful? All these different things kind of like, what was the impact? And that's what we're going to be judging on as much as like purely, yeah, I like the show or not.
Also, impact at the time in which it was aired. Because,
of course.
Like trying to imagine, something like the Brady Bunch nowadays, or even The Office nowadays, it's like, ooh, that's not going to hit the same way that it did back then when it first aired.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, Dave, and then on the opposite side, things that were impactful back then, but like The Cosby Show, where we look back now on a very different lens, which we're going to get to. I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. So have we left anything out?
Just that as a reminder for everybody in the chat, as usual, thank you for joining us, but you know how these tournaments work. There's 4 of us. If we come to a 2-2 loggerhead, you are the deciding vote. And obviously, we're going to hope that chat doesn't also tie. We had that happen once. It was a nightmare.
It was absolutely horrible.
You will break ties and have a meaningful impact on this bracket. Now, it's possible that a handful of you are going to support a show and we're going to go 4-0 in the opposite direction, but that's how it works. I mean, you don't have as much power if you were here, maybe. But
where's Michaela? She needs to weigh in, too. Michaela, I expect you to jump in, but let's get started.
Alrighty, so we are doing, the reason this is such a giant undertaking now is that you've seen our past tournaments. We get into this, especially in the first round, because we're talking about each of these things for the first time. So we're doing half the first round this week, the other half of the first round next week, and then the final week we'll go into the, quarters, semis, finals, etc. Because we'll have talked about each show by then, it'll go a little quicker. So we're only doing 32 of the first 64 sitcoms today. Even that's still going to run long, but once we started to see the type of shows that were in this list and how many were good that missed the cut, it's like, this isn't like some of the past tournaments where you could look at a bracket and go, yeah, that's dead on arrival, that's never advancing, that's a strong contender. Obviously, there's some levels to this, but I honestly have no idea what's going to happen here. There's going to be a handful of really good shows that get knocked out in round 1.
Good.
Yeah, well, and I mean, right off the bat.
So here we are with the number 1 seed. Yes, The Big Bang Theory has more episodes than anything else on this list by about 20 or so.
I actually didn't know that.
Disgusting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Actually, that's not true. I'm sorry. It's 279 for The Big Bang Theory. The number 2 seed is Cheers with 275, so it's not as far clear as I thought.
Damn.
Still, it's number 1.
They did 279 episodes of that fucking show.
And that's not counting Young Sheldon.
So I don't want to go first because I want to hear mainly what Cody and Dave think, where this is
Dude, I hate
Ted Lasso being one of their favorite shows.
I hate
aside
Big Bang Theory
even
so
from
much.
how you feel about Big Bang Theory,
I hate it so much.
So,
you love Ted Lasso.
I know I hate Big Bang Theory so much. Like, I could waste the entire hour explaining how much I hate that show, but I'm not gonna waste everyone's time.
Here, the biggest problem with it is it wants to be smart, but it isn't.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Thank you.
you want to talk about a show that didn't age well? Look at some of the stuff they said in like the first season about how they treat women. How you think they're inclusive because they have part of their cast is, there's a Jewish guy, there's an Indian guy. I don't know. I thought it was kind of offensive that the Indian guy's name was Raj. It was just like, oh, hey, here's the most common name out, the most stereotypical name that you could think of. They don't treat they try to say, here's our show about nerds and, this side of culture. And I think they do a disservice to that side of the culture.
Well, so Dave, I have to jump in because I don't want to tip my hand too bad, but one of the best articles I ever read on, I think it was like a BuzzFeed thing, which I'm shocked about, was how the problem with, somebody had a problem with Big Bang Theory. They couldn't put their finger on it. They thought it was kind of funny, which was their own issue. But they're like, what is bothering me about Big Bang Theory? And as they realize it's not, nerds aren't like in on the joke. It's making fun of nerds. And so when they say like, hey, I just got back from playing D&D and the laugh track goes, you're like, well, wait, why is just D&D inherently funny? Oh, it's because we're all laughing at nerds together. It's actually not inclusive at all.
No.
And I was like, oh yeah, wow, that's really smart actually.
God, you're saying
And
everything I want to say.
I just for that reason, and also, I mean, Doug brought it up in the chat. You just brought it up. That laugh track. There's a video on YouTube that you can go look up where it is literally Big Bang Theory with the laugh track removed. It's creepy as shit, man. Like,
To be fair, I think a lot of those shows without it would be
creepy.
bad. But I think Big Bang Theory is not very strong at its core, so it's probably worse than most.
there's funny moments in that show, I will say, and I think that if you watch it over time, the characters did grow and got out of, Howard Wolowitz on that show was a literal, harasser. Like he's a stalker in that show, which is really disgusting. And they kind of grew out of it over time. But it just rubs me the wrong way, especially going back and if you try to watch it from the beginning. It's like, this doesn't feel right watching this.
Yep.
I think it's going to get 4-0'd out of this tournament.
So Cody, you were so ready to go, and now you got a text message and you're gone.
No, I just was silently listening to all the nice
No,
things you guys were
we already
saying.
know how he feels.
You said you literally said I could go on for so long.
Because I could
about
just sit
hating
there
this.
bashing it, and I don't like most of Chuck Lorre's shows.
Okay.
So like I could drag that part into it. That I think he's a relatively overrated
What's some other one?
show creator type thing. But we just don't, I'm not trying to kill off too much time on the first of 16.
But
of
this
these
is a big one
things,
because again, in Ted Lasso and Big Bang Theory, friend of the show, Tech Guy, his parents named all his cats after characters from the Big Bang Theory. People love this show.
Yeah.
And
it's huge.
We have to give it some credit because it did something very few other sitcoms on this list, including ones we liked more, have done, which was it actually built over time.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having weird viewership drops or cancellation threats, it was consistently 24 episodes a season. It went up in viewership towards the latter half of its run. Its final season did extremely well as well. It was a machine.
It's a weird cross section because my dad, who leans a little more conservative, leans a little more religious, loved the show, and I'm like, what? When I found out, it didn't make any sense to me. But people love it.
But I think those are the people that are watching network TV are going to watch that show.
Yeah.
It makes it feel like, look at me, I'm watching this show about people that are different than me.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
that. I think exactly.
Well,
yeah.
And then
Ted Lasso barely even qualifies as a sitcom, but it does, and we said we were going to be loose on the rules.
It's funny, that's for sure.
It's new, which makes me feel a little bit gross to have it in advance. But the first season, especially, is so solid.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of laughed when I saw how this was breaking down because I wasn't going to try and manipulate the bracket. At one point, I was just going to have things be random, just shuffled a few times and see what happened. And I'm like, we can't have Seinfeld and Shears be a first-round matchup. That can't happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this seemed like
What
a
a
more
great
fair way
matchup.
to go about it. It means that one of the biggest sitcoms of all time is going to be gone, but I don't really feel that bad for the Big Bang Theory. We've talked about Ted Lasso on the show before, and we have time to get to it later, but I don't really feel that bad for it. I really don't. I'm with Sean where I certainly don't want Ted Lasso to win the whole goddamn thing. That would be embarrassing. But I'm going Ted Lasso.
I want.
I'm voting for Big Bang Theory, by the way.
Speak on behalf of Big Bang Theory and speak of the good things. Because, like I said, it has funny moments. I really think it does. I don't think it's, just a horrible show.
No.
I just want someone to speak positively of it in comparison to Ted Lasso, especially.
Yeah, right. So you are voting for Big Bang
I
Theory?
hate the show, but I have to vote for it based on the basics of this the
Yeah,
tournament.
I mean,
because I'm not going to go in like I did with the food thing and manipulate it and try and fuck it up because I'm trying to be funny. If I'm taking it seriously, Big Bang Theory should win over Ted Lasso for multiple of the things that we unfortunately pointed out, that it had huge viewership. It was really, it was like appointment viewing on network TV. It may go down as the very last show to be like that. I don't know how many network TV shows are going to run 279 episodes ever again. It might be the last one of its kind.
I think that's all fair, and I had that hesitation too. And I think if Big Bang was better
As
at
a show.
all, it's just so
trust
bad.
me, I don't know what it's going to come up against in the next round, but I'm not going to let it get much further than that.
There is one other show on this list I think that fits that same category, but there's very few like it. And if it's not the last, it's certainly one of.
It was pretty
for
close
sure.
too.
Yeah. Dave?
For the reasons Cody said, as much as it pains me, I might have to agree with him.
So then we're 2-2.
Mm-hmm.
All right, chat.
We're going straight to chat.
This is a big one this early on,
It's
especially.
really difficult. It's the number one seed. It's the longest running. People love this show. It had significance. Like you said, this is probably the last time that we're going to have a network TV sitcom like this.
I will say the one thing that, because I'll take this into account too for some of the older shows, is how it launched other people's careers. I don't know that Big Bang Theory launched a couple people's careers. I don't know the entire cast.
Kaylee Cuoco, definitely.
But, yeah, Kaylee Cuoco's doing pretty good. I mean, she voices a character in an animated show that I obviously love.
Priceline.
Quite a lot.
She was in
She is in Priceline.
some show.
She voices Harley Quinn. Is what
No.
I'm talking
Well,
about.
yeah, sure. But I mean, before, she was on a show where she was a stepsister or something. And John Ritter was on that, and then he died, and then he was replaced. The deep cut of trivia here.
I know
think I
what
know
show you're
what
talking
And they
about.
tried for like another year. David
Yeah.
Spade came on after to try to replace him.
What is that show called?
Couldn't
God.
do it.
Imagine David Spade
Something
replacing John
Jim? Is it
Ritter.
something Jim?
Yeah, all about Jim. Or
All
something
about-
like that.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
And she was on it. Then this was obviously much bigger, and yeah, now she's in the whatever drama she is on HBO or whatever now.
We got votes from chat.
According to
Votes from
Jim.
Lasso.
That's the name
So-
of the show.
According to Jim,
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's fine.
Okay, so Ted Lasso then.
Big Bang Theory's
I
gone.
feel like I don't need to take a shower anymore. I'm okay.
Yeah, I mean,
well,
look,
we're gonna get to a few that are gonna make.
while
you feel
none of
gross
us
again.
personally are fans of Big Bang Theory, we have to at least give it credit, which I feel like we did. However, it's also the lowest hanging fruit of maybe any fucking show on this
It really
list.
is. That's why I don't like the show at all, and I don't find it funny in any way.
And maybe that's us being like, ooh, we're still above
But again,
that.
I
But
think that Chuck Lorre's shows are all written to be very cheap laugh,
lowest common
To
denominator.
be
lowest
fair,
bullshit. Yeah.
There's a couple that Big Bang Theory I would vote over,
Sure.
and we'll get to those.
Yeah, that's not like the last place on this list.
Yeah.
I wish I just looked at what Chuck Lorre's done. 2.5 Men, Big Bang Theory, Mike and Molly, Dharma and Greg. It's like, holy crap! Like he has done a lot of very popular shows, none of which I ever want to watch.
You know what? I should have voted Dharma. I forgot about Dharma and Greg. I kind of like Dharma and Greg.
It
It probably
wouldn't
makes
have-
me a bad
probably wouldn't have
person.
made the cut either, to be
but-
honest. Just
yeah.
the competition was so tight.
Yeah.
All right, next up is the 32-33 matchup. You know how the brackets go. So this is squarely in the middle of the pack as far as episodes go. Two classics, one more still than the other. 32 seed Mad About You, 33 seed Family Ties.
You know, I like Mad About You. This was Paul Reiser
Yep.
and
All right.
Helen Hunt.
Yeah.
I don't understand the thing with Helen Hunt. Everybody hates Helen Hunt or they think she's ugly. Like, I was like, Family Guy specifically has a recurring joke of like Helen Hunt is the most hideous woman on the planet. Maybe that's why I get for watching Family Guy. But I always thought Mad About You was really solid. I thought it was pretty funny. I can't tell you a lot about like what the plot lines were now looking back. It's been a long time. But I always remember this was like one of the more entertaining shows. And I think it did pretty well too.
I thought Helen Hunt was attractive in What Women Want. I don't know if that was just 15-year-old me raging with hormones, but I thought she looked fine in that. But I don't really understand where that. There's plenty more people hideous than Helen Hunt.
She was cast opposite Mel Gibson. Like, she's cool.
I surprisingly loved Mad About You. Like I used to watch the show as a teenager, and I laughed. There was one joke on that show which I don't know that I've laughed at TV harder, and it was a culmination of the entire episode that built to this one joke at the end, and it was possibly the funniest joke I've ever seen on TV, and which came from freaking Mad About You, which I did not expect.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. Like the story was relatable in a sense. It was a stupid sitcom about two people living, husband and wife living in New York and weird shit they got into. Just like how many other sitcoms are out
shows?
there.
Yeah.
But they were relatable. I don't know.
But
like
you know what? The point. So good writing though was a difference maker, and I think the cast. I think like Paul Reiser is so funny, and he was in this and like Alien. I'm sorry, Aliens.
Stranger Things too.
Oh yeah, that's right. But I think only because he was in Aliens, they do this thing where they bring back like certain, and then he's like in nothing. I don't know what's the deal. He's like, I just like not acting, but he's phenomenal.
And Family Ties. I think that predated me. I didn't really
It's
watch
an
it.
80s show.
But like the type of show that like Family Guy is like intended to spoof, right? Like you always had the moral at the end, like very
are
much.
you
in the,
referring to Family Ties?
yeah,
Yes.
And there's obviously others that have followed the formula since then. Full House, which is on here later, it took this pretty much from Family Ties.
yeah.
But yeah,
Family Ties is kind of funny to look back on from what I can vaguely remember about it, because if I remember right, it's basically a show of these like former hippie parents, and Michael J. Fox is like their little young Republican son.
Yeah.
And he just wants to make money and like screw everybody else and be powerful and stuff, which was a really interesting role for Michael J. Fox as a young kid. So I don't remember liking the show very much personally.
Michael J. Fox in a show like this is almost enough where you have to start considering. But I like Mad About You more.
I was gonna say I didn't watch a ton of these shows, but I think I remember watching Mad About You when I'm younger, so that's what I'm going to vote for.
this was an early star turn for Courtney Cox too. She's in the final 2 seasons. Not a whole lot of other people who endured too much after this. Did huge numbers for like 3 years, but its first couple seasons and his last couple seasons kind of fell off. it's one thing in the beginning if you're building an audience, but then to have an audience and lose it that badly is not a great look. I think I'm going to go Family Ties here because I don't always want to be the one who's going last, just so I'm not shaping things. So I think I'm going to lock in Family Ties. I think I personally prefer Mad About You. I just think the style of show from Family Ties, like, yes, there are shows that precede it as far as the, like, introduce conflict, resolve it, have a moral. Even some of the classics do that to some extent. Hell, Leave It to Beaver does that.
Yeah.
But this was the one that really exemplified what modern sitcoms became, in my opinion. So I think that impact is going to give it a slight edge.
You can never feel bad about voting for Michael J. Fox.
No, I will not.
So.
I would be very interested in seeing them do a remake of Family Ties, but the flip side where it's conservative parents and liberal kids, I think it would fit perfectly.
Yeah.
I have like Zac Efron.
Yeah, you're running into that in your own household right now, so that's perfect.
Isn't that like
parents?
Isn't that basically like American Dad? Like, except American Dad's animated, I guess.
I mean, actually, that brings up a kind of a bigger societal point of how funny that is, how cyclical everything is. It's like, oh, all these people in the 60s were liberals, and so they had conservative kids, and now all the conservative kids of the 80s are going to have liberal kids in the 2000s.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like the whole thing is a sham.
And can't wait till the 2030s when we go right back to the other end.
That's right. I can't wait to hate the generation behind us. I already kind of do.
I know. But anyway, I'm voting Mad About You. I think it was a very good summation of parents not parents, but sorry, just, adults in the 90s living in a big city type of thing. And getting in humorous situations. I thought it was a good summation of the late 90s.
Cool. I'm also going to vote Mad About You.
And I did too. So,
Yeah.
by
All right.
ties.
3-1.
I like that I got a vote, though. I don't mind losing, but I'm glad it wasn't 4-0, especially in the 32-33 matchup.
Michaela got a vote on it just for Michael J. Fox, like we said.
Mm-hmm.
Be proud of that vote.
I don't necessarily understand the love affair of Michael J. Fox. I mean, he's fine, but
No, I mean, you're wrong.
I like how the name fills in on this new bracket I'm doing, because the one I was using before only lets you do 32. I found out about 20 minutes before the show went live. I went, oh shit,
God.
fuck. So I went to challenge instead.
This one's tough.
This is an interesting one that's next, and of course, the people who can see it are following along with us. For the audio listeners, this is, what is that seed there? 16. The 16 seed Family Matters versus the 49. It's so dark.
49.
The 49 seed Brady Bunch. Brady Bunch surprisingly low as far as number of episodes. Obviously, we know the cultural touch point that it was. Whereas Family Matters, I mean, I think, at least for me, it was a show I watched a decent amount growing up, and we all know about Steve Urkel because it's so hot in the 90s. But it had so many more episodes than the Brady Bunch, which is not something I would have guessed coming in. Like, I would have said maybe it had more, but not this many more.
Here's the problem is, so we talked about cultural versus like quality, and I don't know if we've hit one that's going to be more like divisive than the Brady Bunch, which is like so huge. Everybody like knows the song, the tiles and the intro. I can't suffer through an episode of the Brady Bunch.
Really?
It's not funny. It's boring. It's like, yeah, they're doing less. The movie was kind of funny in like a meta way, but yeah, I go back to try to watch the Brady Bunch, and I know like it's me going back now, but like there are other shows I still think are very funny. I do not think Brady Bunch is funny. It makes me, I'm actually a little bit glad though that you all kind of are like, yeah, it wasn't bad. I kind of want it to just be me.
So here's the problem with Family Matters. Like, I'll just say the problem with Family Matters is you can really split it into two shows. You have Family Matters, which was this, examination of an African American family living in America in the late 80s, early 90s, and then you have the Urkel Show that is split into your time traveling. And like, I don't know how you like have those be the same show type of deal.
Dave,
they fluked their way into Urkel as a character.
It started. I saw a clip where it started very extremely rooted, and not just like silly family things, like real like
and then they were
racism
like,
and all that.
We found Urkel as a character. Everybody loves him, so we're gonna make him a main cast member. He's not part of the fucking family. That's the main family about the show, and he becomes the main fucking character.
Dave, did you see the Key and Peele Steve Urkel?
I don't know that. I don't remember that skit.
Oh my God. Okay, go watch it because
Michaela mentioned it.
The funniest shit is like when you take a kernel of truth and build on it.
I have not seen this.
Oh my God. It explores how something like a family rooted show can just turn into the Urkel Show, where it's just like this week he's just
This week, Urkel fucks up this thing for this family. This week, Urkel bursts in the door and annoys them in this way.
In the Key and Peele skit,
he was, Doug, you're right.
The actor is like, this week Urkel makes me invisible. I'm not even in the episode. Yeah, that's really funny. But anyways,
you're not laughing at Brady Bunch. It's very safe. Oh god, it's the safest thing ever. Like,
I mean,
hey,
it takes like, I mean, like, so Modern Family does this better in this blended family type thing and gets more progressive about it. Like, I mean, they're gonna pop up, I think, in a couple matchups. Brady Bunch was like, what if you just had a dad with 3 boys and a mom with 3 girls, and now they have a bigger family, and it's like the problems in it are so mundane.
The youngest one with curls.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, I'm always trying to figure out a comparison for what the hell happened with the Urkel takeover, and I think the natural one is Full House, which we'll get to. I don't think it's in the top half of the bracket, but if, like, think about Full House. Who's the annoying next-door character in that show? Kimmy.
Yeah.
Kimmy.
So what if the entirety of Full House became about Kimmy? I wouldn't
watch Full House.
Well, no, but here's the thing, though, is like, I wonder, here's my theory. As a young kid, watching things like Full House, I thought was okay. Brady Bunch was okay. Family Matters, you had this kid creating wacky inventions every week. So if the kids were a draw, you know, that could be why it was so popular. I'm not saying good, but I'm saying like why it drew eyeballs.
Could be. I mean, and then Full House is more top-heavy with its star power. I mean, you have both Bob Saget and John Stamos in it, so like that's a little bit different than here. Nothing against Reginald VelJohnson, because like he was
crucial,
a fucking stud, and
crucial,
still the heart of the show, even as Urkel's takeover began. I think I'm voting Brady Bunch here. It hurts me because I liked Family Matters as a show, and again, this is one I actually watched growing up, so I kind of liked it then, and also still like it now. But like, Brady Bunch is kind of a juggernaut, and it doesn't really belong this low in the seeding, other than how the seeding happened to work out.
Well, because I feel so secure that you're all gonna vote Brady Bunch, I'm gonna give one vote to Family Matters. They did a Disney World episode that every time I'm on the Tower of Terror, I remember the dad on the Tower of Terror and the way he screams that he doesn't know what the ride is, you see, so he thinks it's just they get to look out on the city and it's nice, and then he drops. And
do you think I'm not gonna shit on a show and then vote for it again?
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe I'm gonna withhold my vote then. Go ahead, Cody. Make your vote.
I'm gonna vote for Family Matters because it is the better show.
Okay. All right.
I think more important. I think again having an African American family on TV in that time when that's not happening very often. Brady Bunch is a very cookie cutter white people show, and so that's what I don't like what Family Matters chose to do, but it did at least keep itself on TV longer and was able to do some still serious stuff while throwing Urkel in for 24 of the 26 episodes.
That was my initial point, and then I forgot when we started talking about Key and Peele. But an African-American family on TV.
Which wasn't unprecedented. There's plenty of shows that came before, but for this particular time slot, it was really the only one like it, especially as Cosby's Show was coming to an end.
Yeah.
Where now it's like, okay, and this is before Fresh Prince, which is in this bracket as well. So it's got this weird niche of like, this is where African Americans can see themselves in television in a way they could before with Sanford and Son and the Jeffersons.
I'm just not voting against that. Just for Brady.
Who's the dad's actor's name?
Reginald VelJohnson.
Oh, so good. Best part of Die Hard.
Yes.
And Bruce Willis is in Die Hard.
He's important in Die Hard.
I will. For the first half of Family Matters, I'll actually vote for that because Brady Bunch was too safe, and that was the thing. Like, I think that it was important for the time, in a sense, to almost normalize that there are different types of family out there than the nuclear one. So, in that sense, it was progressive, kind of how Family Matters was 20 years later. But even so, it was just too. They didn't deal with anything difficult, like, oh no, Bobby broke my toy, so now he's my slave for the week, and he has to do everything I say. Like, I don't know.
Doesn't Joe Namath show up on Brady Bunch?
What?
There's all sorts of cameos on Brady Bunch.
I thought Joe Namath showed up on Brady Bunch. His family just
they had more they had probably as many cameos as Gilligan's Island did, which was weird when you really think about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm voting Family Matters.
I was supposed to do the cultural, I can't vote for Brady Bunch.
We stole your idea.
I don't like it.
I have to shit on things before I actually vote for them.
That's fair.
And Sean, I already brought up the cultural thing first, so
you did.
Well, no, I mean the thing is, I could have gone back on my vote, but then I was like, we leave it to chat, and I don't want to risk this.
All right, move on. Here we go.
This is a tough first round
Very,
matchup.
very important because
Well,
I have
yeah.
some shit to say about Everybody Loves Raymond.
The last thing I'll say real quick is that we have one other show where one character took things over and then eventually the show ran into the ground. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah. Yep.
Am I forgetting which show that is?
Probably. It's a pretty big one. Our next matchup, I really should be looking at these numbers before I click on this because it's hard to see, is the number 17 seed Everybody Loves Raymond versus the number 48 seed Parks and Recreation.
Right.
This one's going to get ugly, I
Okay.
think.
All right. I'm starting. Everybody Loves Raymond.
Mhm.
Okay. What the fuck is Raymond's job? He's a fucking sports writer? Why is he home all the time?
Oh, so
He doesn't
this
do
is personal for you.
Yes, it fucking pissed me off.
Yeah.
It's a sham. They just gave him a cool job so we could have sports-related things on there. It's bullshit. It's a fake show. Parks and Rec is so much better. I could keep bitching about it, but I just had to get off my chest how bullshit his job is.
Well,
I want you to go on a Patton Oswalt level rant, just like in Parks and Rec.
Right. Yeah, give us we'll do 6 minutes on this if you want
And
to.
so here's what's okay.
And it sucks because a lot of other people in Everybody Loves Raymond are really good. I think he's the worst part of the show that his name is in.
Yeah, that's fair. But it was huge. I mean,
I
huge.
know.
We're talking like huge numbers
Absolutely huge.
and multi-award winning, and every once in a while smart. There was the episode where like he found out how to get out of chores, was just like, wait, no, was it? What was it? It was
He did a really shitty job.
no, it was. Oh! If he had a headache one night, so he said like, no sex for me tonight, and then she like started doing all the chores the next day. And it was a whole thing. Every once in a while, it's like kind of smart in the dynamics that it went with. I'm not saying that's a great message, or like being really bad at a chore so you don't have to do it. That was the first one I thought of. So it like has moments. It's just like it's not that funny though, unless you think his voice is like the funniest thing in the
Do
world.
you know what channel it was on?
It was on CBS.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I know. See, I know my.
Yeah,
networks.
shows, man. Lowest common denominator. Like,
Yeah.
I wish we could fit their another synonym for lowest common denominator into the letter CBS. Like,
America's #1 network.
His
Dave.
brother was funny, and the dad was very funny.
Mhm.
I didn't like the mom shtick. I got like that just exhausted me.
Yeah, she is. I mean, there's nothing against Doris Roberts, who was a phenomenal actress, but that character is meant to be a wear and tear over time, and certainly is to the point where it's like, it's funny, but you're like, man, this is almost like too much of a nag. It's almost too much of a stereotype.
Also, I could have the really hot take that Patricia Heaton's better in the middle, the show she does after Everybody Loves Raymond, than she is in
I
this
believe
show.
that.
Well,
She didn't have a ton to do in this show.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. She
Yeah.
actually in the middle. She actually
except
was doing
fight
stuff.
with the mom. And
Yeah.
I think it's very real. I think a lot of people like this show because, like, oh my god, we all know a stepmom who's like the stepmom or
mother-in-law.
mother-in-law. Thank
Yeah.
you. But it was like too much. It was too real for me. The biggest problem, I want to give credit to Everybody Loves Raymond for the things that it does well. It's going against Parks and Rec though, which for me is really tough because from like season 2 to just about the end, it was just phenomenal. Like a really, really, really great show. Sometimes better than The Office, which kind of like inspired it.
It is better than The Office.
And I think plenty of people feel that way. So it's just really stellar.
So I will use the launched people's careers thing for Parks and Rec to say that it spawned basically one of the main movie stars in the country
Oh, yeah.
pretty quickly as its show went on. I mean, Polar was already pretty big. I think Offerman obviously got on everyone's radar quite a bit more after that and has done a lot of things.
I mean,
But
Aziz Ansari.
Aziz obviously
yeah.
had his own issues with Me Too stuff, but was getting incredibly famous right after this show.
And Rob Lowe, probably not made by this by any means, had bigger roles
But had
before
Resurgence,
this, but
though.
a
A
resurgence.
that he
Yep.
is now. Again, it's not like a show I watch, but he is like the star of a show on Fox. Like it's Lone Star 911 or whatever.
Adam Scott headlining his own.
Adam Scott
Apple show
is
now?
is a key piece on an Apple show. Again, there's another show he was on before this that I tried to get into the bracket that he was a key piece of.
Oh, yeah.
Like Parks, I mean, Aubrey Plaza has had, I think, a very good career after this. She's been in a lot of movies. Almost everyone that came out of it and became incredibly successful and famous. And the creators of this show obviously turn and make Brooklyn Nine-Nine, make The Good Place. Then you could dig really deeply into Parks and Rec, but it has spawned a lot of people's careers, more so just then that we all rewatch it and it's really popular now. It's done a lot of things for a lot of people.
What about how Everybody Loves Raymond launched careers? Raymond was in Ice Age.
He voices a
1
grumpy
through 8.
mammoth in Ice Age. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, his parents were pretty old. It was like their last acting roles, I guess.
You know, and the
thing,
thing
but
is, season 1 of Parks and Rec was not very good.
it's terrible, but it's only 6 episodes.
But then Adam Scott and Rob Lowe show up, and the writing gets better, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. And the episode, Cody, do you remember when they do the stop animation? The what's it called?
His claymation.
Yeah, basically.
His claymation.
And he goes. The whole episode is great, but when he goes
Rec
to
Room
play it,
Rec Room for a day or whatever.
yeah,
he called
and
it
it
in the
lasts
title.
3 seconds, and it's over, and he's shattered. That gets me every time. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in a TV show.
I'm very biased because I listen to a podcast that is rewatching Parks and Rec that Rob Lowe and one of the writers host. So I've listened to a lot more behind the scenes stuff from it, which has probably biased me even further towards the show. But I'm voting for Parks and Rec.
I was comparing it to Avatar.
So the worst
go
part
ahead,
of
Dave.
Loves Raymond shows of that type was the husband and wife hated each other. That happens so frequently on
Yes.
shows like that.
Yeah.
They were always bickering, arguing.
King of Queens was the same exact idea.
Which we'll get to.
in the show I do not like.
I kind of like that one, but we'll get that.
Everybody Loves Raymond, I think, has to get some credit because it actually managed to pull 20 million viewers in a time when TV viewership was dwindling. And the highest rated season of Parks and Rec did 6 million, and that was season 1.
Of course. Because
And,
everybody's like, we want more Office. Turns out you didn't. You wanted it to do its own thing.
and we know of the problems with season 1 of Parks and Rec, so it's kind of, like you said, 2 to 7 really warrant the real consideration. I can't vote for Everybody Loves Raymond despite its impact. I'm going Parks and Rec as well. It's one of my favorites.
I already
in
did
this
my
tourney.
impact vote with
Yeah.
Big Bang Theory. I could take one from me.
I didn't know you like Parks and Rec that much, Chris.
There you
And
go.
you know what? I've never actually watched an episode of Parks and Rec. I still just like it, but because
Dave, you should probably, in talking about recommendations, we should get you.
Yeah, this is one, and you can almost. I think it's safe to say you can just skip season 1.
It's fun.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I watched it. I don't regret it, but it's definitely a step below, like a hefty step below the rest of the show. And I don't know that there's a ton of meaningful things that you miss not watching it. You're going to pick up on the characters and their relationships pretty quickly in season 2.
Yeah.
All right, 4-0, Parks and Rec.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's what Miguel was talking about with the basketball guys. That's great.
Here's an interesting blend of old school and kind of old school, although it's been revived recently.
I have another tangent. Did I forget to put I Dream of Jeannie on the list of options? To put in?
It was already on there.
there
It was on
already.
my
It was?
locks
Okay.
because it's too big not to.
Okay, good. I was making sure. I don't know why that came to my mind.
The number 8 seed is Bewitched with a boatload of episodes, more than I would have expected if I'm being honest. It's up against the number 57 seed Saved by the Bell, which, while it didn't last tremendously long, and I haven't even bothered to watch the remake/reboot.
I heard it's good. I heard it's surprised, but it's canceled now again.
So this is not the Bewitched movie with Will Ferrell.
It is not.
No.
We talked about
Okay,
that
I
earlier
had to make
tonight.
sure.
No,
Sorry.
that does not count in this discussion. Just like none of the Brady Bunch movies counted in that discussion. It's just straight up the TV show Bewitched, the old school one, versus the original Saved by the Bell from the 90s.
I liked Bewitched. I thought it was actually funny, even for black and white sitcoms. I thought it was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, I like Bewitched. What sucks here is I like Bewitched. I loved Saved by the Bell. I still love Saved by the Bell. That was like, we talked about appointment television. That was appointment television for me for a while. That was like when people like watch Degrassi and they're like, oh, I'm so addicted to all the drama. Like that was me in Saved by the Bell. I loved these characters. I loved the setting. I was in love with Tina. That was the main girl. Oh my God. Yeah. I thought everybody was funny. I loved the dynamics. I liked even Urkel, or not Urkel, what's his face? Screech.
Screech.
I love Screech. The principal, all that shit. I really, really love Saved by the Bell. It's probably one of my favorite shows on this whole thing.
This, my disdain and hatred for Saved by the Bell probably is why I wasn't popular in second and third grade, but I could not stand
But,
the
like,
show.
why?
Everyone in my school loved it.
What about
Everyone
it?
loved I hated it. Couldn't
Why?
stand it.
Was Zach too like pretentious because he could pause time?
No. It just, I watched this show. I'm like, who is entertaining? Like, Zach Morris is the worst human being on earth at times. I mean,
Yeah, but he has a cool power. Which, like, at the time,
to do mid-show talking heads.
yeah, it didn't strike me that he had like a superpower back then watching it. Anyways, continue.
Did you have someone at your school that got called Screech? I did.
Were you called Screech, Dave?
No.
Was this the issue?
No. Because I thought maybe that was more common. It happened at my school because I remember that being the case. Because this was big in the early 90s. But like, there are certainly some things that have endured from this show. I mean, it did launch a few careers, some that we may have chosen for it not to have launched. But nonetheless, it did launch a few different careers. I really liked Bewitched. Even as a 12 to 14-year-old, because my grandparents would have on two things when I was over there, either the Game Show Network or like the Nick at Night / classic TV show channel. So I saw a lot of Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie and those type of shows. Like Dave said, it was precocious. It's way ahead of its time for humor, and especially now, I think, having gone back and watched a couple episodes early last year, a while back, I'm like, wow, like they got away with some stuff in an era where I would not have expected this to be the case. Now, do the special effects hold up? No. And maybe that's even part of the joke now. Maybe that's kind of the fun of like, yeah, there's no way that like it's all magic and it's like clearly really bad. But it was also, so long ago that it's hard to hold it against it. A couple of these people were stars already, and this is kind of a launching point for Paul Lynde, who is a comedy tour de force of the 70s and 80s. So I'm going to vote for Bewitched, even though I really liked Saved by the Bell when I was young.
I think
also,
you liked it.
If you want to talk about the mother-in-law and mother-in-law's son-in-law dynamic, that Bewitched kind of started that.
Yeah, and
they hate each other.
Dick York deserves a ton of credit because as the straight man in a house full of weird people and magic happening and shit going crazy, he nails this role. Everybody's pretty good in the show overall, but his ability just to kind of roll with the punches, and they're fucking doozies of punches, is what I think makes this work.
He gets replaced in the show, right?
He does, because he had like a medical problem.
Okay.
So
I was just saying, I didn't think he finished the series.
No, a few seasons in, it kind of awkwardly switches to somebody else being in his role. It does certainly kind of hurt the show a little bit over like the biggest picture of is it the best ever or anything. I think you have to give it kind of demerits for that, just because recasting always hurts, whether the person before was better or after. But it's still getting my vote because I think it's just too important, and I liked it quite a bit.
Gets my vote.
All right. So I won Saved by the Bell. That's it. Well, you haven't voted yet.
No.
But yeah, I don't think you like Saved by the Bell. From the face I'm getting.
Ooh.
It sounds like you maybe really hated Saved by the Bell.
Didn't enjoy it a whole lot.
Well, there you go. It's because you were called Screech in high school.
I was not. I just didn't have. I don't know. You'd say by the Bell never really clicked for me. I didn't watch a ton of either of these shows, but I vaguely remember Bewitched episodes. Although I really get those mixed with I Dream of Jeannie because they're both magic, and
yeah, I did too.
I was a kid, but the nose wrinkling thing does remind me of what I was thinking of. So Bewitched is what I would vote for.
It is kind of strange to me that we have these sort of so similar back-to-back block shows. This and I Dream of Jeannie, Full House, and Family Matters. Where like they're kind of the same show. Obviously, they're different, and it's just, there's a litany of small things.
Bewitched is a little less creepy because the genie's kind of trapped in the bottle. She's just stuck in there.
There's also the whole like master dynamic.
Yeah,
that's a little bit
creepy.
awkward nowadays too. But nonetheless, whereas she just kind of has magical powers, and she usually uses them for good.
Maybe that's why I like I Dream of Jeannie.
You went Bewitched, Cody?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I don't want to send that to the chat either.
You'll never know what'll happen in the chat. Talking about blends of styles, we have Who's the Boss, obviously with Tony Danza, and Malcolm in the Middle. Who's the Boss is the 25 seed. Malcolm in the Middle is the 40 seed. This is, I think, going to be an interesting one, but I'm pretty confident I know where this is going.
Malcolm in the Middle is going to win.
So here's the thing. Who's the Boss I enjoyed. There's a couple episodes that stand out to me. My favorite memory of Who's the Boss is actually from Community, though, where they set out to answer the question, who is actually the boss?
Yeah.
To me, Malcolm in the Middle was really funny. It was kind of one of the first, which I thought was interesting when WandaVision was going through like the shows that sort of made an impact through the years.
Like Bewitched.
Yeah, they spoof, definitely. So they spoof Bewitched and then also Malcolm in the Middle because it was kind of one of the first of its kind with a stellar cast. Great performances from everyone. Obviously, early Bryan Cranston is part of that. I thought it was solid. I think it's still pretty funny.
Holds up pretty well. Who's the Boss is tough for me because it's also a launching point for Alyssa Milano. So, that deserves some credit, in addition to obviously Tony Danza, who was huge. And it does sort of flip the traditional idea on its head because, this is the 80s and we're talking about, the woman's the man of the family. And while that sounds so basic and almost like perfunctory now, at the time you go like, wait, what? The man's not bringing home the income? She has the job and he's at home? So while that might seem almost insulting as a premise, at the time it was actually kind of progressive. And it's amazing to think that it's really only been less than 40 years and we've swung that far on the pendulum from progressive to insulting, even though the show itself hasn't changed or done anything wrong really, because it's an artifact of the time. It's just interesting to see things do change. Maybe we don't notice it day to day or year to year, but boy, when you look back 40 years or 60 years, a lot has changed.
Does Michaela not know that Bryan Cranston was in Malcolm in the Middle?
I think she might be finding out now.
Uh-oh.
What? That was when Breaking Bad started. Everyone was like, "Wait, the dad from Malcolm in the Middle is in this? What?
How?
Yeah.
Because he's a goofball on that show, so the thought was like, well, there's no way he can carry a drama as the lead role. Like, there's no chance in hell.
He's also really fucking funny.
He's
in
so
Malcolm in the
funny.
Middle.
He's incredible. He's so good in Malcolm in the Middle. I will say, like, I like Who's the Boss. Like, it seems like a lot of these 80s shows try to push the boundaries, which I like in this. They're all just so damn formulaic sometimes that it's hard. Malcolm in the Middle, I thought, was so fantastic in the lack of laugh track, the dysfunctional family that still loves each other. In a way, it kind of set the groundwork for Bob's Burgers, in a way, like how they actually still love each other, but they're completely dysfunctional and have infighting, but they still love each other. I love that part of it. And Malcolm, man, I love Malcolm in the Middle. I thought it was fantastic. I did not think I was going to like it when I first started watching it, but I thought it was fantastic.
Oh God, what was his name? I paused because I forgot it. The kid where like he like skyrocketed his career and then fell
Frankie
off a cliff.
Muniz?
Frankie
You're thinking
Muniz,
of
yeah.
Frankie Muniz, who, by the way, owns a olive oil store in Scottsdale now. I saw him when I
There you
went
go. He was like the next big thing until he wasn't anymore.
He had a medical issue. He actually does not remember anything about Malcolm in the Middle.
Holy cow.
He does not remember any. He had some sort of brain issue and does not remember a single thing about that show.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yikes.
But he was really good in it.
He was great. He was like, the lead character, and he led it well.
Yeah. So I'll vote Malcolm in the Middle, even though Who's the Boss pushed boundaries, and I like that part. But Malcolm in the Middle.
I'm going Malcolm in the Middle as well.
I also am.
So, wow.
So a
That's
4-0. I can't say I'm shocked because I think there are plenty of classic shows on this list that we have to give some credit to. And look, Who's the Boss was a stalwart of the 80s. Like, it was a powerhouse. But the 80s shows, I think, are going to be the toughest for us. If anything, I'm going to be more likely to give an old show credit than I am a show from the 80s because I was too young when it was live and I didn't really watch it when I got older. It's the way it works, I suppose.
Yep.
I have to figure out where the cutoff for this is because I don't remember. Let's see. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to have, 16 matchups? Is that right? Because we're on a real bad pace if that's true.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
we
God.
are.
We're
That's
going to have to split this episode up then.
Well, we'll get to 8 then, and we'll see where we stand next week. We'll break it up differently than we first thought. So we still have 2 more to go.
Oh, my God. Okay.
The next one is the number 9 seed Modern Family. This was
Oh.
the show I was referring to earlier. Modern Family, 250 episodes by the end of its run.
Can't believe it lasted that long.
Yeah, so that's, again, as you can see from the seeding, 9th most. That's more than several other shows, like Friends. That's more episodes than Friends. So Modern Family, the 9 seed, against the number 56 seed Reno 911.
Man, something's going to break my heart in this one because I actually like both of these shows a lot.
Does Reno 911's episode total include its revival on Quibi?
All I can tell you is it has 88 episodes. I can't tell you what it was in that total.
I
Or it's
love
two- or it's
Reno
two
911. It was so stupid and like I heard like so many episodes you're like not even like laughing out loud. It's just like amusing, and that's enough. Like it works for it. I really like that show. But like Modern Family is excellent.
Yeah, so like I like Reno 911 better than Modern Family, and I do actually like Modern Family as a show. But I'm gonna run into the like sitcom actual thing that we're supposed to go through here, and Modern Family I think did a pretty good job at this point in time of trying to, show what other families were like. I think it also spawned like a bunch of different other countries made their own version of Modern Family. So I think in terms of what it like, we talked about Big Bang Theory and that was really important to the US and that's where a lot of the viewership came. I think Modern Family got picked up pretty well like worldwide. If it started generating like different versions of Modern Family in Brazil and one in like the UK or wherever all these like channels or started pulling it from, but pulled that premise. And so I think it probably deserves a lot of credit for being that type of thing. I know it fell off near the end of its run. I mean, I think I actually watched basically the entire series. And I know it fell off and got a little backwards on the back end of it. And they struggled, I think, with some of the actors who grew up and then maybe they weren't the best actors anymore when they weren't children anymore.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
in my opinion. But yeah, I can keep going. That's fine. I'm not.
So do you ever find out what the interview mechanic is?
No, it's like Parks and Rec. They just ignore that part of the mockumentary of it. Like it's a
what
storytelling
is that?
device. The Office developed that idea, or at least adapted that idea, and everyone used it, but they never really like explained why there was that thing. It's just an idea to progress the story along, and it's a trick to write it. That's where Brooklyn Nine-Nine got away from that, and they did little cutaways to like they went to like a flashback or whatever. So they got back away from doing the confessional type thing, like it's the fucking real world or some shit.
Yeah, like the challenge.
Exactly, like the challenge.
Look,
and Modern Family probably beat that to death because I think Parks actually did a good job of leaning away from it a little bit after its run, and Modern Family was like it was vital to the entire story the whole time.
I think the dad is so fucking funny in Modern Family.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
And,
the guy who plays Phil Dunphy is real fucking funny, and he really carries that show a lot.
Burrell.
Yeah.
Yes.
On the back end of that run, when it is not that good anymore, I was watching it honestly just because he's
what I
so
would do.
funny.
Because the show, I like it a lot. It didn't hook me in the way Parks and Rec did, where I'm like, I got to come back every week. So I'm like made it a few seasons in. I plan to go back. He's a big part of why I want to go back.
Yeah. He holds up incredibly well. He is so funny while also still trying to be a good dad and be a loving dad, and fumbles his way through that at times, but like he's not like a jerk in any way to where you really do like want to root for him and enjoy him just being so backwards sometimes.
I think Ed O'Neill deserves some credit here.
He does.
When I'm looking at this list, there's only 2 names that stand out to me as stars of multiple huge sitcoms. Ted Danson's the other. We haven't gotten to either of his shows yet. But that's it, because he obviously had Married with Children in the late 80s, early 90s, and now this, where maybe he's not the main guy on there, but he's definitely one of, obviously. So, like, to do that in basically 2 different generations, because there's a lot of other people who carried any one of these sitcoms over this list, and then any of the leading roles they had maybe didn't pan out, or at least reach this stratosphere. So, to me, I think that's kind of telling as well.
He's got to play the villain in Modern Family a lot. He has to be the bad guy very, very often and carry that for the most part because the family all rebels up against him because he's the patriarch and all that shit.
And it kind of it's different than Married with Children, but it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same dynamic, but there is that kind of familiarity of like, well, I'm the man of the house, so what I say goes, and everybody else is like, no, I don't think so. The difference in Modern Family is there's a lot more people telling him no.
Yeah.
Is Modern Family one of the first shows that incorporated a gay couple into a family dynamic? Like Will and Grace obviously existed to show like a gay couple, or at least gay people on television. But I feel like Modern Family is one of the first ones that said like, yeah, they're gay people. There's a family, and they're also part of a larger family. They're not just out on their own.
I definitely think so.
Yeah, they did,
especially with the adoption.
Yeah, they did unfortunately lean into some stereotypes occasionally for some laughs here and there.
Yeah,
with those two. But I think they did try to sway away from it. One of them is obviously like a college football player, and he's a football coach and things like that, to where you don't get into complete like super stereotypical things. Some of their friends are very stereotypical in that show that they used to kind of unfortunately poke some fun at. But I think you're right in terms of the family dynamic, adopting a child, and all of that process. I think it probably is one of the first, if not the first.
And for some reason, Sean, you said how much Reno 911 got you. It never got me. Like Reno 911
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
it's funny because like
too Law and Order over there, aren't you? You just you can't handle any fun.
I don't understand it. It's irreverent.
It's great. It's great. I love it. We would watch Suns games, then we'd watch Reno 911 and MXC. That was our night every night in high school.
MXC, most extreme elimination challenge.
Phenomenal show. Not a sitcom. Couldn't make the cut, unfortunately.
It would have won this whole tournament.
Actually, very much not a sitcom. Can't think of more of an opposite. I'm voting for Modern Family.
Yep.
Okay, so we got a sweep. Another sweep.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing against Reno 911, which is definitely a funny show. And if anything, has become more prescient with the anti-cop movement in America. But it's Modern Family. Modern Family's too good.
Oh, cool.
Oh, my goodness.
So
gracious.
We may try and do a couple more just so we don't have huge undertakings the next week. But at the very least, we're tackling this one for sure. This is the 24 seed That 70s Show versus the 41 seed Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. When I gave a quick look over how these first round matchups kind of broke down, the way the seeding happened to fall into place, this I looked at as one of the toughest matchups of the first round.
Why do people like That 70s Show? I've never been able to figure it out.
It's kind
I know it's attacking a bunch of people, but like I've watched a bunch of episodes and be like, this isn't that very funny. I don't
It's
get it.
amusing. It's not great, Dave. I'll give you that. Like, I don't. It's fine when it's on. At times, it's funny. I think they embraced certain like aspects of culture that were interesting. It was a throwback to the '70s, which I think hooked people. They did that '80s show, and I think for numerous reasons,
I can tell you why it was popular.
it didn't
when he's
work.
done.
And okay, what is it?
Mila Kunis was really hot, and Ashton Kutcher was really stupid, and it was funny.
Really good cast is where I was going to, and like you talk about shows that launched careers.
Yeah.
I mean, it launched every one of their cast careers.
It launched a family.
I was to say, and a relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, seriously, if you go back and watch it, I don't find much funny. Red's kind of funny because he's kind of just a dick, and that's whatever.
Red is funny, and so is the mom. The mom is
But
great.
like
Yes.
when I've gone back and watched it, I'm basically like, okay, when are Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher going to be on the screen? Because that's pretty much all I'm actually looking for the most part. Eric's super whiny, and I get over it.
Yeah.
Hyde has some issues now, given what he's done in his actual life as an actor and stuff.
Oh,
So
I didn't know about that. I like Donna,
Yeah.
and she has a career.
Donna feels kind of slept on in this show.
she gets, because she's just a prop for Eric's storyline most of the time, and
Yeah,
she kind of gets treated like shit. Honestly,
they did the unique kind of thing though with the to never show smoking weed, but with the rotating camera, so they incorporated like a smart
It's very implied.
visual
yes.
gag with getting around a separate gag.
And I think
Very
we
progressive.
haven't really seen a lot like that either. We've seen plenty of other shows adopt like the talking to the camera documentary style or some other things, but I don't really think of any other shows that did something like that where it's like, hey, we're going to rotate around the room and everybody's going to get to say a thing.
It was smart.
Yeah. And I think real quick, like Red and Kitty is probably one of my favorite on-screen like parent relationships because he's the tough, gruff guy who has a soft heart, and she is the supportive mom, but she also won't put up with anyone's bullshit at a certain point. And I just kind of like their dynamic because it doesn't feel like they don't feel like they hate each other. They don't get along perfectly, but like, a lot of long-time married couples don't necessarily do it, but you can tell they like each other and they both have their role.
I like them for what's written, and I like the performances a lot.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it elevates it to another level.
Yep.
I will tell you that 70s show probably also spawned something very annoying because if I'm remembering right, that's when Kutcher just says "burn" all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that was a very popular
yeah.
dumb phrase saying over and over again if we're talking about cultural impact and things like that.
Well, here's the problem. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is, I'm going to spoil that, one of my highest personal ranked shows on this entire list.
Is this the new version or is this the
Definitely the
original?
new
No.
version. I don't know what you mean by an old version.
This-
I'm only talking about the super serious new one.
That's correct, which is called Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And not something
It's just
dumber
called
and
Bel-Air,
shorter.
I think, right?
Yes,
No,
that is
yeah.
correct.
Okay.
So when you're looking at shows, cultural impact, significance, tackling sometimes very important issues,
Launching a movie career?
launching a movie career that, like, until a few months ago, it was pretty spotless.
Inspiring a dance phenomenon.
Yeah. Just the whole cast being great. And, arguably, most importantly, it was just really fucking funny all the time. I was laughing. Sometimes the jokes didn't land, but he would sell it with such enthusiasm. I was like, you know what? That works. And the plot was interesting. Those can be my issue with Modern Family is like, I like the comedy, but it's like, oh no, another boring family plight. Like, who gives a shit? Fresh Prince, you have this like kid who goes over living in this rich family's house. There's that dynamic. There's like the fish out of water. It's so interesting all the time. And I just think it's great.
I can't give enough credit. As good as Will Smith was, and
Alfonso
Carlton's character, Rafonso Albero, or
Rafonso
Alberto.
Alberto.
Roberto.
glue to that show was James Avery as the dad. And
Oh yeah.
so fucking good, and all of it.
We talked about Carl Winslow as a TV dad, and he's phenomenal. But James Avery might take the cake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
I
then I had a crush on the younger daughter.
Tatiana Ali.
Tatiana Ali,
100%.
yeah.
And then at times I had a crush on the older daughter too, because and what was cool about those characters is they could drive their own storylines. Like when what's her face's fiance died. First of all, what a huge thing to actually do on a sitcom. Even nowadays, you just kill off a character that was like sort of important. But the storylines that each character had were just like so good. They had such confidence in their cast, and it was excellent.
Yeah. I mean, you know I'm voting.
They did have a key recasting of that sister.
They did. Of the sister. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It was an
And
aunt. And Viv get recast?
And Viv got
the
recast.
amphibian, yeah. And I think we have to give a small shout out to the butler.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like, not a huge role in that by any means, but somehow manages to always get little quips in and stuff that just, like, there was never really a scene where you walked away being like, yeah, that didn't land. Like, whatever time he gets, he seems to chew up the scenery. So
There's an episode where he won the lottery, but it was just a trick. They pulled a prank on him, but he thought he won, and he was like insulting the whole family and like going off.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, "Oh, we were just kidding."
I'm going Fresh Prince. Dave's going Fresh Prince. Sean's going Fresh Prince.
Oh yeah, big time.
I'm also
I
going
cannot
I'm also going Fresh Prince.
vote for it hard enough.
That 70s show.
70s.
That 70s show could have won some first round matchups. Not this one. Let's see. We started a hair late. We can run till 9. What the hell? Because we're going to have too much to do in the next 2 weeks if we don't. So let's get a couple more in before we run out of time here. I don't think this one is going to take a lot of discussion.
This is so easy because we can talk about The Good Place more later.
Yeah, Good Place done.
I mean, I'll just say, look, the problem is 2.5 Men was one of the biggest shows CBS has ever had.
Cool.
Sure.
Maybe the biggest. It is so not. You talk about, like, sometimes you just don't understand. Like, I don't get people around me. I don't understand the culture. This is the epitome of that. It was not funny. I tried. Everybody's like, I love this show. I tried to give it a shot. I couldn't do it. Do you just have to love Charlie Sheen? Is that the trick?
Or do you just have to love, like, feeling like, do you have to watch the show and think like, oh, the laugh track's going, it must be funny? Because I don't fucking get it.
Yeah.
Like, every time I've seen that show, I'm just like, it's laugh track, joke. A lot of shows are like this, but, like, I've watched a show and thought, like, I generally like people. I generally think that I like people around me and are really positive around people around me. And then when I find out that 2.5 Men was the most popular show in America for like 5 years, I'm like, people fucking suck, man.
Yeah.
People are horrible.
Yeah.
I hate people.
Top of the world.
This is going to sound super high and mighty, and 2.5 Men is going to be one of them, and then How I Met Your Mother is going to be another one. But, like, using an entire character trait of just being a womanizer, and that's like the funny, like, that's the whole funny joke of it.
In the 2000s.
Just does not, it just does not land. And again, maybe that sounds super pretentious from me, but, like, I just don't give a shit.
Like, the Fonz was a womanizer. That was his thing. But this was back in the fucking 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
So at least you can be like, oh, well, that was, back then. This was in the 2000s. And while it fit for Charlie Sheen, who's a real-life scumbag, it just, I don't know. To me, this has kind of an Archer vibe to me, where it's like none of these characters like each other. They're all horrible to each other almost all the time. The difference is Archer is at least funny and well written
and leans into that exact
correct
theme.
So while I'm not a huge Archer guy, I definitely see why people like it, and I think it's a funny ass show. This I've watched maybe 5 to 10 episodes of and just been like, I'm not even having fun.
You know what, Chris? And the other thing, you hit the big one, which is Archer's actually funny. There's also some semblance of character growth over the course of Archer, which there's not in 2.5 Men at all.
Well, there's character growth. Charlie Sheen's gone.
Well, he dies,
which is also a huge point in its
Yeah.
demerit. Yes.
Hey, Ashton Kutcher is a major character on 2 of these shows.
That's true.
And he's going to go out in the first round both times.
The
I
kid-
guess that is true. I didn't really think about him in this show
Yeah.
because
It does not
it is
count.
Charlie Sheen,
It
but
does
you're
not
right.
count.
He carries a few seasons.
The kid in 2.5 Men has since gone on and been like, I hated every moment of that.
Mhm.
But he's also crazy now, so I
don't blame him.
Yeah.
Yeah, look what this turned him into.
Which, and again, we'll get to The Good Place because, like, but what I will say, The Good Place is everything that 2.5 Men is not. It's funny, it's heartwarming. There's an actual, like, pretty riveting at times plot. You actually care about what's going on and the twists and turns.
It makes you think a little bit. I
Yeah,
guess.
meaningful. Yeah. But this could not have had a worse matchup for 2.5 Men, even though it was always going to get voted out.
There are not many shows on this list I like less than 2.5 Men, so it was going to be in danger no matter what. But this matchup and one that might go super deep, yeah, I don't know. So that's a 4 seed gone. I didn't say that going in. The 61 seed is The Good Place, but I feel zero shame whatsoever in that. See you later.
Yeah, but by ranking these, a quick like tangent, like Ted Lasso is going to do this, as I believe they have announced it's going to end after the 3rd season.
Yes.
Episode total, like, it's the usefulness of ranking this, like, it doesn't mean something's better. The Good Place knew it needed to end, so it ended the show rather than milking this crap over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You mean like How I Met Your Mother did?
Yeah.
Exactly. How Much Mother.
There's so
Modern
many shows that
Family's
overstayed
guilty
their
of it, too.
weapon. Scrubs.
Maybe it's
overstayed
good
its welcome.
Maybe it's good How I Met Your Mother overstayed the welcome, though, because the ending was so bad. It's like it prolonged the time it took to get
Friends
there.
overstayed its welcome.
Yes.
There's several shows on it. So you're right. And I was going to
like
bring that up in the
Friends.
beginning and forgot because we were so rushed. But yes, Now, obviously, episode total is not an end-all, be-all, because there are certainly something to be said for a tight show that ends on its terms and not someone else's.
I'm gonna die on my Hello Friends.
That's a matchup.
This is a weird one, right?
Oof.
Look at this. This is the 29 seed Golden Girls up against the number 36 seed Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
That's a pair of shows that I think could theoretically have made like the quarterfinals.
In some brackets.
In the right matchups of things.
They could have, because Golden Girls is a show I actually liked quite a bit.
So out of all those shows, when I'm looking at old shows, and I'm like, I just don't get it anymore. I don't laugh. They're not funny. Brady Bunch, great example. Golden Girls has me like rolling all the time. It's really funny.
Yeah.
But also like endearing and interesting. And we talk about worst matchups, like talk about like fun, endearing, hopeful, and then you have It's Always Sunny as its competitor, which is none of those things. Purposefully though, like that's the whole reason that show is made. The point is it's a show about bad people. And it's a little bit of satire, and it's a little bit of this, that, and the other thing.
It's almost like what 2.5 Men tries to be, but isn't.
Yes,
I was gonna say,
It's Always Sunny self-aware.
You want a live-action version of Archer.
Yeah.
Sunny's probably the closest thing you have.
At least in Archer, people are somewhat smart. Always in Sunny, they are comically dumb. Like, stupidly, unbelievably dumb in many, many ways. And it's sometimes hard.
I listened to a podcast of It's Always Sunny, and they're like, so wait a minute. They had a realization one episode. Are we really going to have one of our characters not able to read? Is that a decision we're making right now? Yeah, it was a decision they made. So, yeah.
Despite the fact that there's been like this, everyone's kind of like popping up saying like, hey, yeah, Golden Girls was really funny. I feel like it's slept on by a lot of people. Like how funny it was, and especially for the time. Like, try to pitch a show like, hey, we're gonna have a bunch of old ladies on talking about their dating lives and everything, and it's gonna be hilarious. And it is. God, that show gets me laughing to this day.
The premise is just there's no dudes.
Yeah.
It's all women, like you said, all older women, and one's smart, one's dumb, one's horny, and one's old. Yep. That's it. That's the premise. And yeah, there's some evolution over time and stuff, but man, the writing is so good from top to bottom. I mean, it's become almost something of more of a cultural phenomenon now than it was then in some ways. It was popular then, but
Betty White in particular. Yeah.
But everyone on that show, I mean, and obviously a couple of them didn't last for super long because they were already old when it started. Like B. Arthur in particular didn't make it super far after this. But like, man, this one's tough for me. I'm always super torn on Always Sunny because some of the episodes are so fucking funny. And there are also times where I'm like, I know the whole point is that these people don't change. I don't know that I need 19 seasons of them not changing and just being dumbasses and mean to people. Like, I love it at times, and there are also times where I'm like, this just isn't my cup of tea.
I love, like, the moments that I love, though. Like when they kidnap the guy to write a better review, or when you have, what's her face, the actress, where she goes off on a tangent, breaking down like in a murder mystery, like, and then you put the knife in the back, and then she goes for like 10 minutes, and she's like, pretty interesting, or it would have been if any of it was true. And she launches on a second, even crazier explanation.
I feel like, and I haven't watched a ton of It's Always Sunny, which I probably should.
Yeah, me too.
But like, I kind of, we didn't talk about this when like Parks and Rec came up. In terms of like the internet culture of GIFs and screen caps and shit like that people use a lot, I know a lot about Always Sunny just because I am on Twitter and shit like that, and it has done a very good job. And I guess it's been around long enough to where it has plenty of screen grabs and GIFs you can steal from. But holy shit, does that show have a lot of stuff that people pull from and lean on for humor that I think kind of shows its really true staying power. Well, it's never like regarded as, oh, it's like the funniest show on TV, but it's still constantly there, and it's outliving shows that are considered funnier than it a lot of the time. I just think it deserves a lot of credit for that.
Well, and I want to say too, it doesn't do it as much as Community, which we'll get to, but like it will play into, like, it'll just have an episode that's just like a genre, like a spoof on a genre. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, we watched one the other day, amazing night, black and white mystery, like Casablanca or the Maltese Falcon, with no explanation. It wasn't like, oh, a character's passed out, he's hallucinating. No context, no nothing. It's just we're doing this for an episode.
After 300 episodes.
Yeah,
or
and it
whatever
was
they're gonna
great.
eventually
It was
get to.
really good. So, man, I'm maybe more torn on this than I've been all show so far.
It's the hardest matchup
It
so
is
far,
tough.
I think.
I feel like there are kind of stupid people in the world that glom onto the kind of like how they did with Rick and Morty. How it's like, no, you're not supposed to like him. Like some people.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like kind of buy into it. Like there was an episode. I think it wasn't Mac. It was the other guy. But like he was like, I don't believe in evolution. And here's why. And he listed all these things where it's like basically. He was dumb, and so it's like, wait, no, that's not. You're not proving anything. But like all the other people are buying into it, and it's like, oh god, this is going to actually work on some people, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, that's true. And I know exactly what you're talking about.
But on the other hand, Golden Girls, the best part of that was the quips that they gave each other. They're quick, they're witty. Like I remember
it was sharp.
Yeah, they're sharp. Like
Yeah.
there's like Blanche, I think the horny character was like talking about she was in the petite section of the mall and this man was coming up to me and she went on and on about how she was like dodging him, not giving him the time of day. And then Betty White's character just goes, "What were you doing in petites?"
You're like, God damn.
Exactly.
And we talked about these type of characters before. Estelle Getty, who played the mother, the older woman, was one of those types of characters who was not supposed to have that kind of role. And she gets the most burns of anybody because she's like the matriarch. So she gets to go off on anybody when they're all being like dumb and stupid. Man, like that was one of those characters that just did so well that she forced herself into the main cast and became a stalwart part of the show. So props to her too. I'm going to vote for Golden Girls, even though this is, I think, one of the closest matchups in the first round. I don't think I'm going to win, but I'm still going to do it because I just like that show a lot.
I'm going Golden Girls.
I want to go last for once. Not for one. I don't mean it like that. On this one, I want to go last because I'm so
It's going to
split.
be fun as Maisie and Michaela have to decide because I'm going to go with Sunny. I think Sean's going to go with It's Always Sunny.
Yeah, we know where the tiebreaker's going.
Sunny.
I'm probably going to go with Sunny. Here's why. Maisie's probably why. Because
She'll hurt
she
you.
loves the show. No. Not because I fear for my life.
You should.
Maybe a little. But really,
okay, Doug.
they're both so good.
Yeah. Vote Doug. Also, Maisie, and I'm not using this to sway your vote, but have you actually seen an episode of Golden Girls?
No way in hell. No way in hell. I bet you she would watch Golden Girls and be like, oh, now I feel bad because that's actually really...
It's all on Doug.
Fucking funny.
Doug.
All right, well, Doug, come on, Doug. Here's the tying vote. 'cause,
No, in all caps.
Yeah.
Maisie not only has not seen Golden Girls, she is adamant she hasn't seen Golden Girls.
And she doesn't give a shit.
Golden Girls was off the air before she was born. She doesn't give a shit.
It's going to be funny when I vote Golden Girls and all this.
No.
Doug goes with Golden Girls.
You know
Doug
what?
takes Golden Girls to split
That
the
makes
tie.
me feel better because I'm so conflicted on this one. So I think it worked out.
I was too. Almost Sunny would have won probably half the first round matches
That's-
it could have been
A
in.
lot.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Not this one.
Should have had more episodes.
But
But I can see Golden Girls going far. So, well, maybe not. It's going up against Fresh Prince.
It's dead.
So we'll see.
Oh, I didn't.
That's unfortunate.
I just looked the winner. Oh no. How's it going to handle this? Let's find out.
Pretty good so
It's
far.
freaking out, guys. It's freaking out. This is where we're going to stop anyways.
No, one more.
Nothing happened. Great. I can fix that real quick.
We can't go one more. We're like past 9 o'clock already. You're crazy.
Well,
Hold
wanna
on.
see
I
what
can
the
fix this.
I just want to see what the next matchup is.
There we go.
We can see and you can think about it.
Let me see.
There it goes.
Leave
It's
it
going
to
against
Beaver.
Good Place. That's going to be tough for Golden
Oh,
Girls.
boy.
The Golden
Oh, boy.
Place.
We have some interesting ones coming up. I think this whole bracket is interesting. That's why we decided to devote all this time to it because there's just so many good shows. Here's a sneak peek of some of what is coming up.
Oof. Home Improvement, Third Rock. Ouch.
Home Improvement,
Yeah.
Third Rock is on there. Leave It
Oof.
to Beaver, one of the mainstays, one of the the sitcoms versus Community, which obviously a huge cult following. Married with Children and Veep, where Veep loses 3-1 despite Cody's love of it, and then Seinfeld and Step by Step, where Step by Step loses probably pretty badly too. We'll see. Those are just 4 of the upcoming matchups. There's still the whole other part of the bracket. We have gotten done 10
Oh my God. I was like, we're almost done with this
of
side,
32
right?
first-round matchups.
Oh boy.
Okay,
Will
maybe-
and Grace Entourage is going to make for a fascinating
I
conversation.
can't drag back up. I'm stuck down here now, which is fine. We're about done anyways.
Maybe
It's
we
9
need to
o'clock.
No,
Speed up.
Scrubs and Boy Meets World. Oh, that fucking sucks.
Yeah. Maybe we need to speed up. Maybe we need to speed up with the idea that we'll get to a lot of these in the next round.
We're just gonna do like
Either that or we rapid fire through the later rounds because we'll have talked about all of them.
Oh,
And we
well,
go, okay,
there's
like,
that true too.
no time to dick around. Now we talked about like, we'll talk more about Good Place later. Well, maybe there is no tomorrow. But we'll find out. Yeah, here's just some of them. You saw me scroll past some other
that
ones.
Sucks.
Some quite interesting first round matchups.
Bye, Drew Carey show.
Oh, I disagree, sir.
Bye, Drew Carey show.
Yeah, we'll see about that. You're gonna have a tie at best, my friend. So don't get your hopes
Sean,
up.
go watch a lot of Curb. Because
I probably would like it. I haven't seen it.
You'd have a week to do homework now, I guess, if there's a show on here that you're
Sean, I will
intrigued by.
give you my HBO login so you can study up on Curb.
I have an HBO login. I will say, Curb Your Enthusiasm played a vital role in a murder case.
It did at a Dodger game.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I found a way to scroll.
They couldn't crack this case, and they had a camera. They were filming Curb Your Enthusiasm.
It
It's an
got a
amazing
guy
story.
off death row, I believe.
Yeah, it sure did.
I thought Will and Grayson versus Entourage was one of the funniest
It
matches
is-
of
it
the
is
first
gonna be-
round.
So if I used to love Entourage when I was younger, boy, if I talked about 2.5 Men having some womanizing, well,
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get there. Maisie, I can't believe I brought up the murder thing, and you didn't say anything.
Coach versus New Girl? Oh, this is going to be tough.
Coach is in New Girl. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, Crazy Nelson, man of many faces.
Man, New Girl, how do I feel about that?
What does that mean?
We'll get to it.
Frasier and Kimmy Schmidt, which just feels like a
I
very
will
strange
just
matchup.
say I love two of the actors in New Girl so much. Is it enough to vote New Girl? I don't
Is it
know.
Jake Johnson and Max Greenfield?
Yes.
That was easy.
A couple other really painful first round matches, by
Office
the way,
and
that are
30
coming
Rock.
up. Office and 30 Rock is definitely one of them. And I thought Laverne and Shirley and Three's Company ended up against each other was kind of funny.
That's pretty funny.
So I don't know what we're going to do with that when we get there, but that's for next week because, yeah, we have a long ways to go. But
Did Maisie tell you about the Curb thing?
We watched the whole podcast. We listened to a whole podcast.
But you don't watch a fucking show.
No, not yet.
Maisie, you're a mean person like I am. You will really enjoy Curb. Just saying. If you're a mean person who likes being mean to people, you'll enjoy it.
For no reason.
Yeah, for no reason.
All right, there you
so
go.
now we have our takeaways. She needs to watch Curb, and I guess she can force Sean to do it, so that's nice. And Dave, you got a homework assignment as well, which I think is important for you.
What's Dave's homework assignment? Be early next time?
Yeah, that would be nice.
I would settle for making it on
But
time.
Parks and Rec is the homework assignment.
That's right.
Ah, yes, that's right.
Dave, you do Parks and Rec. I'll do Curb.
Okay. I'll try my best.
He's going to do Curb. You know what he's not going to do? The Orville. That's going to do it for this week's show. In between episodes, you can find us at our website, objectionnetwork.com, or on youtube.com/objectionnetwork. If for some reason you're still listening to this podcast and not watching, first of all, thank you. I like it. But this is the type of stuff that's better to be here in person. You can contribute to the vote. We had, 2 ties that were broken? And you can also kind of follow the bracket. You can see it all. Remember, you can also always watch the episodes on demand. You don't have to watch them live on YouTube. So if you want to see the bracket and then watch the episode, you can do it that way too. We will see you next week. We still have 2 more weeks to go of this as we break down all the best TV sitcoms of all time. I have no idea what's going to win this in the end, and I'm excited about that.
There's so many. So many.
See you next time.